Jason here from Scribbles and Knits Fibers. If you are a returning viewer, thank you for coming back. If you're a new viewer, welcome. My name is Jason. I am the owner and dyer of Scribbles and Knits Fibers. In addition to that, I am a knitter, so I do a lot of knitting on the side. If you want to see some of my knitting projects or some of my dyeing, you can find me here on YouTube at Scribbles and Knits, or you can find me on Instagram at Scribbles and Knits. You can find me on Facebook at Scribbles and Knits Fibers, or you can find me on Twitter at Scribbles and Knits. And it's Scribbles and Knits because the name title won't allow you any more letters. So, but most places you can find me as either Scribbles and Knits or Scribbles and Knits Fibers. You can also find me and all my different social media links at my website at scribblesandknits.com. So welcome everybody. It's been a little while since I've seen you guys last. Since I've seen you last, things have been pretty busy. I had a busy semester with teaching at the university, and especially at the end of the university, I do a lot of teaching. And then, of course, at the end of the term, which ended last week, there was grading to be done. Was it last week? No, it was 2 weeks ago. Oh, wow. It's almost 2 weeks. A week and a half ago was the end of the term. And a lot of grading to be done, a lot of papers to be graded, some oral finals to have to get through, and finally finished up with actually turning in the grades today. So I feel a little bit kind of a reprieve from that. But it was a good term. It really was. In addition to that, we just got done with the Memorial Day weekend, and we went out camping this weekend. We did tent camping. In Iowa on Saturday, we had a storm come through, and it was a thunderstorm, a pretty good thunderstorm. And it rained on us during the entire time, or not the entire time, for about a good 3 or 4 hours. And some of it was very big downpour. And so we stayed in the tent during that time, of course, which I thought was a lot of fun because the kids, they just hung out, and we all hung out and took naps or relaxed, and I got to do some knitting. And that ended up allowing me more time to get to finishing a pair of socks, which I'll show you in a little bit. So, in addition to that, let's see, I got to do a lot of knitting this weekend. We played some catch, we did some swimming. It was all around just a nice, fun, and relaxing weekend. So, if you see me looking off to the side occasionally, my daughter is making faces at me in the other room. Speaking of that, we haven't been in this room, I don't think yet, in any of our podcasts. This room is our dining room, which is pretty much my packaging and mailing center for Scribbles and Knits Fibers. However, I have to keep it mostly tidy because it is just off our entryway. So it does get its use, especially now. It gets its use a lot more now, actually, since doing the Scribbles and Knits venture. Because prior to that, we pretty much eat in our kitchen because we have an eat-in kitchen too. So that was pretty much what I've been up to over the past couple months. I've been, of course, keeping up with your podcasts of those of you who I know about and I'm able to follow regularly. And so I've been doing that as well. Aside from also working on my dissertation and everything else that comes along with going with baseball games with my kids as they're up in the baseball season. My daughter is transitioning to 6th grade next year, and so she had her end of the year concerts and end of the year award ceremonies and such, and so been busy with all of that too. So let's see. So let's start off with some works in progress. Let's talk about some things that I've been working on. I actually have not been working on a lot of my works in progress that I was working on are no longer works in progress, but they're finished objects. So now with works in progress, I have moved on to something new. I'll tell you, I do have a number of works in progress that have not been touched for a while, and so I don't really consider those works in progress right now. Even though if I were to pick them back up, of course, they'd be works in progress then. However, because I just finished some objects, I just started something new yesterday. And that is, I'm doing another of the Dustland hats. I keep picking that pattern because it is a pattern that I think will look good on either my two boys or my girl. So if you have a pattern that is universal like that you think would be a good option for me to turn to, feel free to put it in the comments below, because I think I just turned to this because it's an easier knit and doesn't require a lot of thinking with it, but yet the end product looks really good. So this is what it looks like, and let me show you. This is out of one of my colorways, and one of my new colorways, which I'll get to at the end here. But this is out of my colorway, Deceptive Magic, okay? So as you look at it, there, and this is just the ribbing. I've only gotten to the ribbing at the bottom of the hat. But it's a lot of deep, dark maroons and reds, and then there's this pop of a turquoisey blue. That's right, is that a word, turquoisey? We'll make it a word, right? And then this is the other side. So see how there's really just one section in the skein that is that turquoisey blue that just pops in it. So that's all the fur that I've gotten on it. I'm using US 5 needles and just continue to work on that. So that's my work in progress. I know, right? Well, it's because I just finished some things. This weekend I was camping and I ended up finishing my socks. So let me get right to my finished objects. Just a second, because my daughter's actually trying to. Did you need something?
Yeah. Where are the erasers and expo markers?
I'm not sure. Yeah. Anywho. So that was my daughter. She's looking for the dry erasers. I'm not sure where they're at. So moving on to my finished objects, because this is like newly finished, like finished on Sunday. This is a pair of vanilla socks. Let me put them back on. Here's something interesting. I gotta tell you guys this. So I do a lot of gift knitting when it comes to socks, or at least I have in the past. I'm starting to do more knitting for socks for myself. And so I have sock blockers, but they're not for my size foot. They're for smaller feet. So I don't have a pair of sock blockers that look really good with this. I also haven't woven in the ends yet for this project. So I'm going to try to hide them here. But I can't hide the toe one. So this is what they look like. This is in my colorway, Aurora Polar Lights. I use the Fish Lips Kiss Heel. There, do you see that? Fish Lips Kiss Heel. And a 2x2 ribbing at the top. And I used a 2x2 ribbing for the arch as well. Now, this is fairly vanilla, you know. I mean, if there is a definition of vanilla, it's pretty darn close. Except for the ribbing on the bottom. One of the things that I'm trying to do with the ribbing, and this was an experiment, and somebody's probably already figured this out, and so if you know how to do this, let me know. But I was trying to create a little bit tighter feel around the arch. You know, just to give that sense of compression a little bit around the arch. These don't do that at all. These actually make it feel nice. And I'm back. Sorry, had a little technical difficulty there, and then had somebody come to the door, and so it worked out. The timing was perfect to have a technical difficulty because then I got to chat with the person at the door. Anywho, so back to this sock, the ribbing. So if you guys have any way to make the compression around the arch of the foot a little bit more compressing using sock yarn, let me know, because that'd be something that I wouldn't mind adding into my socks when I make a vanilla sock. So I do like the look of it, though. I do like the look of the ribbing around the arch. It just kind of, it makes it look a little more finished. And yeah, so all in all, I'm happy with how these turned out. I will say that, remember last time that you guys saw my podcast, I was a little concerned about, it just got shady all of a sudden. Got dark outside. Last time I saw you guys, there was laddering, and so I got to figure some way to go back in and fix the laddering. But ultimately, though, I'm pretty happy with this. Now, about the sock blockers, I'm not sure if I mentioned this before, but these are a smaller sock blocker. I'm looking for the metal sock blockers, the ones that just have a metal wire around it, or some wooden sock blockers that come in men's foot sizes, or at least a large foot size. Because I'd like to get something like that for my own acquisition, so that way I can show off some of the socks that I make for myself. So that's that. Another finished object that I'm going to show you guys, I don't actually have it with me. And that is because I gave it to my wife. And so it is the mystery knit along from Periscoping Sisters called A Mother's Heart. I got that completed in time. Thumbs up. It's made with my sock yarn from this super squishy sock base, Summer Vacation. And I'm going to insert a video or a picture of it in just a second, but I want to show you guys how much is still left of this skein. Okay, see that? Now I'm going to insert the picture of the Summer Vacation, or I'm sorry, the A Mother's Heart Mystery Knit Along from Periscoping Sisters. This is amazing that if you look at the detail of it, how many different type of patterns are within it, and to still have this much sock yarn left over, that's pretty good use of yarn. So this sock base, my super squishy sock base, comes in 463 yards with 75% merino and 25% nylon. And I got to tell you, knit up, this is just, it's a dream. It's super soft, and it's got really good drape actually too. So that is the A Mother's Heart Mystery Knit Along. That is from the Periscoping Sisters, and I believe if you were to try to look for it on Ravelry, it would be under Debbie Reese, or Debbie S. Reese, I believe is what it is. I'd have to look at that again, but Debbie Reese, and it is a part of the Periscoping Sisters. So she is one of the two. Amy Mears is the other Periscoping sister. So that's A Mother's Heart, and I was really pleased with how that knit up. The Summer Vacation, I was really pleased with the colorway. It ended up blending together very nicely and created a really nice, a beautiful color. So that was that. So next, for acquisitions. Okay, so I'm back. I had another technical difficulty. This one was not so technical. I just happened to get a phone call, which just, it happens, right? So that is my acquisition, or no, that is my finished objects. So next, what I'd like to talk to you about is my acquisitions, which I don't have a lot of acquisitions this time. The one acquisition that I actually have is some stitch markers, and I got to explain to you why I have more stitch markers. I was looking on Instagram, and I came across Knitting Daddy Greg's post where he was working on some socks, and I noticed that he had a number of stitch markers lined up along his sock, and I was like, aha, he's doing that to keep us count. And so I actually talked to him and confirmed that is exactly what he was doing. And anytime I can find a functional use for these things, boom, I'm ready to go with it. So I went back to my favorite stitch mark maker, Melissa, from Knitty by Nature. I always want to say Naughty by Nature, but it's because, anywho, Knitty by Nature. And Melissa, and I looked on her Etsy shop and found some new stitch markers. So I went ahead and ordered, and I want to show you these stitch markers that I got. So the first one I'm going to show you is, dun, 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 ready? The TARDIS. That's right. Doctor Who. Let's see if I can make that show up there. There we go. The Doctor Who TARDIS. Anybody who's a Doctor Who fan knows that is basically the flying ship that takes Doctor Who to different dimensions and different planets, and just all around takes them to different adventures. This next one's pretty cool too. Ready? Let's see if it's a dragon. I know it's not. There we go. I'll block the sun a little bit with my ring finger. There we go. All right, the next one, I gotta check this out. I think I've mentioned it before, but if I haven't, it's time that you know. I'm a big fan of the coffee. So that looks like a little Starbucks mug, or not mug, but a Starbucks cup. And the cool thing about it is it spins. Yeah, so let's do that. Very cool. And last but not least, if you're into fiber, if you're into knitting, you gotta have something with sheep on it. I'm a big fan of the sheep. I am. I tell you, I've been knitting for almost 2 years now, and the amazement of what fiber actually can be from an artistic standpoint, from a mental health standpoint, from the factor of knitting, is pretty impressive. So now the sheep, I am a friend of the sheep. That's right. So I got those stitch markers as new acquisitions. So not a lot of new acquisitions, but some pretty helpful ones. All right. So last but not least, I want to introduce you guys to some of my new colorways, and particularly, I want to introduce you guys to this concept that I have started. So as you guys may know, if you guys have been watching Scribbles and Knits Fibers, my podcast, or if you've gone to my website or seen me on Instagram, one of the things that I do is that I usually, with each skein colorway, I pair it with a story or vignette. It's part of that artistic, artsy-fartsy side of me, right? Where I not only like to dye the fiber, but I like to create a story that goes with it. And it's a very short vignette the idea is it's supposed to take you away to that concept or that construct of the yarn colorway. And sometimes the yarn influences the story, and sometimes the story influences the yarn colorway. Well, I wanted to create something unique and new where I'm writing a storyline that is continuous. And that's the fun part about it, okay? So if you go to my website, scribblesandknits.com, so Scribbles and Knits, so Scribblesandknits.com, scribblesandknits.com. And you go to the shop button in the menu and go to Estherland Series. The storyline series is called Estherland Series. And what has been released is chapters 1, 2, 3, and 4. Okay? And each of the yarns, the colorways, has a story vignette of it, and it's continuous. So chapter 1 is the first colorway, chapter 2 is the second colorway. And the great thing about it is that if you don't want to buy the yarns, you can go and just read the story, okay? Because it's all on the website. And they're short vignettes, so it won't take very long either. But the other cool thing about it is if, say, like you really like the colorway chapter 3 and you want to buy chapter 3 colorway, you're not just stuck with just listening to or just reading chapter 3 colorway, wondering where the story comes from. You can go back on the website and see the other chapters and read up to it to understand a little bit more about the chapter 3 colorway. So that's the cool part of it. So let me introduce to you guys, let me just do something here real quick. Let me introduce to you guys each chapter here, chapters 1 through 4, okay? The first chapter, many of you guys may have already seen if you follow me on Instagram, and that's the Brilliant Shadow Magic, okay? And remember, so that's Brilliant Shadow Magic. This colorway has been out for a couple weeks now, but it was re-released this past Thursday. Well, actually, a week ago, the stories were released. The colors were actually released last Thursday, okay, on the Etsy shop. But this is Brilliant Shadow Magic. Beautiful array of blues. Let me block getting a little brightness from outside. All the way to some blacks. That's Brilliant Shadow Magic. You got to read the story behind it. I mean, I'm telling you, the yarn is, I love the yarn, but the story The story kind of really describes why it's Brilliant Shadow Magic. Okay? So that's chapter 1. You got to read it to understand it. Chapter 2, ready for this? This is a beauty. I'm actually in love with all the colors, but ready? This is Seductive Magic. Let me kind of block out that sun is just crazy today. Sometimes it's bright, sometimes it's not. It's not the sun's fault, it's the clouds above it. Or below it, I should say. There you go. Brilliant Shadow Magic. Or not brilliant, sorry. Seductive Magic. So that's chapter 2. So it goes from this pink to this dark purple with little splashes of a very faint, bright yellow-green. Now remember that hat I showed you earlier, which was from the colorway Deceptive Magic. This is what it looks like schemed up. So it'll make more sense where that blue comes from. One end, just one little spot that's blue. That turquoise blue, turquoisey blue. Through reds, maroons, to a deep dark red, to some black. And that's Deceptive Magic. And like I said, you got to read the story to understand where it comes from. And notice this right here. That blue is a part, comes from the same blue of Brilliant Shadow Magic. Read the story, you'll find out why. And last but not least, for these 4 chapters, we have Sorcerer's Ruling. Okay. There we go. This one is just an array of all different colors, just really speaks to what the storyline talks about with Sorcerer's Ruling. I don't want to give it away because I want you guys to enjoy it, reading it through. And so it's a series that you really do end up following through from chapters 1. Let me just do something here. From chapters 1 through chapter 4, where you continue to follow through. And you want to start with chapter 1 to get an understanding of what's going on in the storyline. So I believe what I will do is I will continue on with the storyline, but I will also continue on with my seasonal based colorways as well. So for instance, on my website, you see, if you go to the shop area, you'll see that there's the Estherland series. And so you'll read along, and it's underneath each color chapter is the colorway as well as the vignette of the storyline. And on each of them, of course, if you want to purchase it, there's the buy here on Etsy, which takes you to my Etsy shop. So that's in the Estherland series. Then I have a Summer Line 2017, which is my current summer color line that is not necessarily associated with Estherland series. So that would be things like my Summer Vacation, which I just showed you a little bit ago, was this that I made for my wife's A Mother's Heart Mystery Knit Along, as well as I believe Discovering Grace is still there, and the Caribbean Tang. Sorry, I'm trying to remember it off the top of my head. But anyway, some of my current color lines that are more of the summery feel that I created specifically for the summer. And then there is a retired colorway line. And the only one in there currently is actually Aurora Polar Lights, but it's not because I won't do other colorways. It's just what I've updated the site to have so far. But my plan is that when a season is finished, if it's a colorway that I'm willing to continue to make upon request, and then of course people can request it. It's just the difference between that and current colorway lines is just that by request, obviously it's going to take a week or two for me to create it, so that way I can send it out, or, just but but I don't believe that that I'll be. I believe that it'll still be the same cost structure. Or price structure. I don't think the price structure will change just because I'm doing a retired color line at this time. Because if you find something you like, I'm pretty open to trying things out. The other thing too is that if you have an interest in any of the colorways, but you want it in a DK weight, like I said, I do have 100% merino DK weight. I primarily have it for my own selfish purposes for making things, but I can always take one of my colorways and make it into the DK weight because it is super nice DK weight yarn. So anyway, so that's enough about Scribbles and Its Fibers and the colorways currently. And that's everything that I've got to show you guys, actually. So thank you very much for joining me today. I hope this was at least fun to see where I'm at and see what I'm up to, as well as I hope you guys are continuing to enjoy the colors, the storylines that I post for the Scribbles and Its Fibers, as well as my other stuff that I put on Instagram. So if you want to get in contact with me, you can always contact me at jason@scribblesandknits.com, as well as you can follow me on Instagram. You can like my store or like my page on Facebook, which is Scribbles and Its Fibers. You can also follow me on Twitter. Instagram is the place where I tend to be on the most, though, however. So feel free to follow me and feel free to say hi on Instagram. Anyway, thank you all for joining me today. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your week, and I'll be back to talk to you real soon. Take care. Bye.